The rain was relentless that evening, painting the city in silver streaks of sorrow. The streets glistened under the pale light of the street lamps, where people hurried past, clutching umbrellas, desperate to escape the cold. But one woman, thin, exhausted, and trembling, stood alone at the corner of a small bakery, her worn shawl barely protecting her from the chill. Her name was Lena, a mother whose eyes had long forgotten what hope looked like. Her daughter, Mia, barely 5 years old, clung to her hand, her small frame shivering under the thin blanket draped over her shoulders. The girl's lips were pale, her voice weak. "Mommy, I'm hungry." That single word, hungry, cut deeper into Lena's soul than any blade could. For days she had walked the streets, searching for work, begging for mercy, pleading for just one meal. But the world had turned cold toward her. Her husband, once a construction worker, had died in an accident 6 months ago, leaving her with debt she couldn't pay, and a daughter she couldn't fail. That night, as she stared through the bakery window, she saw fresh bread, golden, steaming, the kind that filled the air with warmth and love. Inside, laughter echoed, people ate, and the sweet aroma mocked her empty stomach. Mia tugged her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, can we have that one?" she whispered, pointing to a small loaf on the counter. Lena's heart broke. She had nothing left, not a coin, not even her dignity. Her trembling fingers pressed against the cold glass as tears blurred her vision. The clerk inside looked at her with irritation and turned away. That was when desperation pushed her beyond reason. Lena glanced at Mia's hollow cheeks, her fragile frame and the faint quiver of her lips. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "Forgive me, my love." When the shopkeeper turned his back, Lena slipped inside the bakery. Her hands shook as she reached for a loaf of bread. The warmth burned against her cold skin, and for a fleeting moment she felt human again. She turned, clutching the loaf, ready to run, not for herself, but for her child. But she didn't get far. "Hey, stop right there!" the baker shouted. The sound of a police whistle pierced through the rain. A tall figure approached, the officer's uniform glistening under the streetlight. His name was Officer Daniel Cole, a man known for his firm adherence to the law. He stopped in front of Lena, his voice firm. "Mom, did you take that without paying?" Lena froze, her body trembling. "Please, I'll return it tomorrow. My child hasn't eaten in 2 days." "That's theft," Daniel replied coldly. "You'll have to come with me." Her lips quivered, tears streaming down her face. "You can arrest me, but please feed my child first." The words hung in the air, slicing through Daniel's stoic heart. He looked down at the small girl clinging to her mother's leg, her eyes wide, her stomach growling audibly in the silence. Lena's arms wrapped protectively around her daughter. "She's all I have left," she whispered. "Please, just one bite for her." Something inside Daniel shifted. He saw not a criminal, but a mother, broken, desperate, yet full of love. Memories flooded him, his own mother working 3 jobs to feed him after his father abandoned them. He remembered being hungry too. But the law was the law. He took a deep breath, radioed for backup, and said softly, "You'll come with me, but bring the child." At the police station, the air was thick with tension. Other officers laughed, called her names: thief, beggar, unfit mother. Lena sat quietly, holding Mia close. Daniel stood at a distance watching. He couldn't shake the image of that little girl's eyes, too innocent for the cruelty of hunger. When Lena was placed in a holding room, he brought a tray of food, bread, soup, and a cup of milk. She looked up in disbelief. "I can't take that," she said. "You've already done enough." Daniel set the tray down anyway. "It's not from the police," he said quietly. "It's from me." Lena hesitated, then slowly handed the food to her daughter. Mia's tiny hands reached for the bread, her eyes lighting up as she took the first bite. The sound of her soft chewing filled the silent room like a hymn. Daniel watched them in silence, something breaking inside him. The badge on his chest felt heavier than ever before. That night, long after his shift ended, he sat in his car outside the station, thinking about Lena's words, "You can arrest me, but feed my child first." He realized the law could punish, but it couldn't heal. It could restrain, but it couldn't show mercy. And mercy was what the world needed most. As he drove home, the city lights blurred through his windshield. He whispered to himself, "What kind of world have we built when a mother must steal to feed her child?" The next morning, Daniel made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Morning, sunlight crept through the station windows, casting long shadows over the worn desks. Officer Daniel Cole sat in silence, his badge resting on the table in front of him. The golden emblem that once symbolized justice now felt like a chain around his heart. He replayed the image of Mia's small hands clutching the bread, her innocent smile after eating. That smile was worth more than all the medals and honors he had ever earned. When Lena was brought before the magistrate, Daniel stood by her side. She had no lawyer, no one to speak for her. Her head was bowed and her voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, Your Honor," she said. "I took the bread. I'm guilty, but I didn't do it for myself. I did it for my child," the courtroom murmured. The judge looked at her with stern eyes. "Theft is still theft," he said coldly. Daniel's heart pounded. He couldn't stay silent anymore. "Your Honor," he said, stepping forward, "may I speak?" The judge raised an eyebrow. "Officer Cole, this is highly irregular." "I know, sir," Daniel said, his voice trembling. "But this woman, she didn't steal out of greed. She stole out of love. Sometimes mercy is the higher law." The courtroom fell silent. Every eye turned toward him. The judge sighed. "Officer, are you suggesting we ignore the law?" "I'm saying we remember what it was made for," Daniel replied. "To protect, not to punish the helpless." After a long pause, the judge leaned back in his chair. "The court will adjourn for review," he said finally. Outside the courtroom, Lena turned to Daniel, her eyes full of tears. "Why would you risk your career for me?" He looked at her gently. "Because once someone did the same for my mother." For the next few days, Daniel visited Lena and Mia at the small shelter where they were placed. He brought food, clothes, and toys. Slowly, the mother's eyes regained light, and the little girl began to laugh again. One evening, Daniel found Lena sitting by the window, looking out at the sunset. "You're free now," he said softly. The court dropped the charges, said it was an act of necessity. She gasped, covering her mouth. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to," Daniel said. "Just promise me one thing, never give up on hope." Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. "I won't." But Daniel had one more decision to make. That night he walked back into the station, his heart heavy. He found his captain waiting for him. "I heard what you did," the captain said. "Defending a thief in court, feeding her, paying her fine. What were you thinking?" Daniel placed his badge on the table. "I was thinking about what's right." The captain stared at the badge, then back at him. "You're quitting?" "Yes," Daniel said. "I can't serve a system that punishes hunger but ignores cruelty." He turned and walked out into the night, leaving behind the world that had shaped him, and finding the man he was meant to be. Months passed. Daniel found work with a local charity, helping homeless families rebuild their lives. One day, as he was organizing food supplies, he heard a small voice behind him. "Uncle Daniel!" He turned to see Mia running toward him, her little arms outstretched. She leapt into his arms, laughing. Behind her stood Lena, smiling shyly, holding a basket of fresh bread. "We started our own bakery," she said proudly. "We call it the Bread of Hope. Every loaf we sell, we give one free to a family in need." Daniel's eyes glistened. "That's beautiful. It's because of you," Lena said softly. "You showed us kindness when the world turned its back." He smiled. "No, Lena, you showed me what real courage looks like." As the sun set behind them, painting the sky in gold and amber, the scent of warm bread filled the air, symbolizing not just food, but forgiveness, redemption, and love. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt peace. He had lost his badge but gained something far greater, a purpose. He watched as Mia handed a loaf to another hungry child nearby. "Here," she said sweetly. "It's free." Lena looked at Daniel and whispered, "Sometimes you don't need a badge to serve justice." He nodded, smiling. "You just need a heart." And as the world rushed past that little bakery, no one noticed that the true hero wasn't wearing a uniform, but a smile.